I want to start today by putting a massive, sort of uncomfortable paradox on the table. It's something that bugs me every time I dive into high-level spiritual philosophy or, you know, mysticism.
You know, I love a good paradox. What's keeping you up at night?
It's what I call the escapism problem. I mean, if you look at the vast, vast majority of religious or spiritual traditions, and I'm generalizing here, but stick with me, the trajectory is almost always vertical.
Yeah.
It's an exit strategy.
Explain what you mean by that.
Well, just look at the world around us. It's finite, it's messy, entropy is a real thing, things break, people get sick, society is chaotic, and frankly, just maintaining a physical existence it's exhausting.
Right.
So the spiritual sales pitch is usually something like, don't worry about all this is an illusion, or it's a test, or maybe just a waiting room. The real action is upstairs.
Right. The goal is to ascend.
Precisely. You meditate to ascend. You pray to connect to something transcendent. The whole point is to shed the physical heavy lifting and get to that state of pure, unadulterated spirit. You know, nirvana, heaven, the world of souls, whatever you want to call it.
You view the physical as the mud and the spiritual as the shower. You want to wash off the world to find God.
Exactly. But here's the problem, and this is where the source material for today just completely wrecked my worldview. If the ultimate God, the infinite, the Ein Sof, is truly perfect and self-sufficient, why does this physical dumpster fire even exist?
Why didn't he just stop at the spiritual realms?
Yeah, I mean, if you read any Kabbalah, you know about the higher worlds. Atzilis, Bariah, these are realms of pure light and consciousness where angels and souls exist in total clarity. God is obvious there.
There's no ambiguity.
None. There's no traffic, no taxes, no confusion. If I were an infinite being looking for a place to hang out, I'd stay there. Why go to all the trouble of creating a physical universe where you're hidden, where people doubt your existence and where you have to deal with, with us?
That question, why are we here, is usually asked with a tone of, despair. But you're asking it as a structural critique of the entire cosmos. And you are spot on. Logic dictates that the creator should have stopped at the spiritual ceiling.
But he didn't.
He didn't. And that is a hook for our entire deep dive today. We are unpacking a concept that turns that whole exit strategy theology completely on its head. It's called Dira Betectonum.
A dwelling place in the lowest realms.
Correct. The sources we are analyzing, specifically a set of foundational Chassidic discourses, they argue that the high spiritual worlds aren't the destination. They're just the commute.
The commute.
The destination is here, specifically here, in the grit and in the grind of this world.
So God wants to be in the traffic.
It's not just that he tolerates it. It's that this specific low, dark, physical reality is the only place where his true essence, his Awtsmoos, can actually be at home.
That is a massive claim. That implies that the angels up in heaven are essentially just the staff in the lobby, but we're the ones in the private residence.
That is almost exactly the metaphor the text uses.
Mm.
And our mission today is to decode why. We need to understand the mechanics of this dwelling place. We're going to trace the history of the divine presence, how it got here, how we kicked it out, and how we brought it back.
Okay.
We're going to look at the psychology of desire versus reason, and crucially, we're going to look at the tactical manual for how we, as the builders of this house, are supposed to operate when things go wrong.
And I know we have some intense metaphors coming up, the king's treasure and a broken rope, which really reframe how we view failure. But let's start with the history, because I think most people, myself included, assume that God is in heaven, and if we're lucky, we get a little visitation down here.
That's the common perception, isn't it? God is up there looking down. But the Midrash, cited in our sources, it paints a completely different picture of the original factory settings of the universe.
The original state.
Right. It says that when the world was first created, before all the drama, before the history books, the Shekinah, the divine presence, had its primary residence right here on earth.
So the Garden of Eden wasn't just a metaphor for a spiritual plane, it was a physical place.
Oh, it was physical, absolutely.
Yeah.
But the membrane between the physical and the spiritual was permeable. The presence was revealed. Adam and Eve didn't have to believe in God in the way we do. They walked with him. The text says the essence of the Shekinah was in the lower worlds.
Okay, so we started with the penthouse on the ground floor, but clearly the lease was violated because we are definitely not in that state now.
No, we are not. And this is where the text lays out a very specific, almost tragic timeline. It describes 7 specific generations of decline, 7 sins or corruptions that systematically push the divine presence away.
It's like an elevator going up the wrong way. We kept pushing the up button on the Shekinah.
Exactly. A perfect analogy. And it's not random. Each generation pushed the Shekinah from one firmament or heaven to the next. So originally God is on earth.
Oh.
Then comes the first event, the tree of knowledge.
Adam and Eve.
This was the first breach of trust. It was the introduction of ego. I want what I want, even if the commander says no. And that one act pushed the Shekinah from earth up to the first heaven.
Okay, so God steps back. He's still close, but he's not here anymore.
Then comes Cain.
The first murder.
Fratricide, the destruction of human life. This is a massive escalation from just eating a fruit, right? It introduced violence into the human condition, and that violence pushed the presence from the first heaven to the second.
Okay, that makes sense. Then we had the generation of Enosh. Now, for those who don't know their biblical genealogy, Enosh was Adam's grandson. What did his generation do that was so bad?
They invented idolatry, but not in the way you might think. They didn't stop believing in God. They just decided that God was, too big, too transcendent to care about the details of their lives.
So they created intermediaries.
Exactly. They started worshiping the stars, the sun, the forces of nature as a way to manage their lives. They called God the God of gods, but they stopped relating to him directly.
So they bureaucratized spirituality. They put a whole layer of middle management between them and the boss.
And that distance in the relationship created a physical or metaphysical distance in the reality. The Shekinah retreated from the second heaven to the third.
Okay, then we get to the flood generation.
Total societal breakdown. The text really emphasizes robbery and sexual immorality. It wasn't just that they were bad as individuals, it was that the entire social contract completely evaporated. People became commodities. That pushed the presence up to the fourth heaven.
We're getting further and further away. Next is the Tower of Babel.
The generation of the dispersion. And this was an interesting one. They weren't violent like the flood generation. In fact, they were incredibly unified.
Let us build a city and a tower.
But their unity was a rebellion against the divine. It was kind of the first humanist manifesto humanity uniting to storm the heavens and assert their own dominance. We don't need the king. We can build our own tower. That intellectual rebellion pushed the presence to the fifth heaven.
And then Sodom.
Sodom and Gomorrah. This was the institutionalization of cruelty. It wasn't just that they were unkind. They passed laws against kindness. They actively punished charity.
Wow.
That complete inversion of moral values pushed the Shekinah to the sixth heaven.
And finally, the Egyptians.
Specifically, the text says the Egyptians in the days of Abraham. This is the archetype of self-worship and the oppression of the other. That final layer of ego and cruelty pushed the divine presence to the seventh heaven.
The furthest possible point.
The furthest point. The world was dark. The connection was, for all intents and purposes, severed. The elevator was at the top floor, and we were stuck in the basement.
So that's the tragedy. But this deep dive isn't a tragedy. It's usually about the fix. So if there were 7 steps away, I'm going to assume there are 7 steps back.
Symmetry is a fundamental rule in these sources. God created one opposite the other. And just as 7 generations corrupted the world and exiled the Shekinah, 7 Tzaddikim, 7 righteous ones arose to bring it back down.
The retrieval team.
Exactly. And it's fascinating to see how they did it. It wasn't just some magic trick. It was through their specific character traits that they repaired the specific damage of the previous generations.
So who starts the descent? Who calls the elevator down from the 7th floor?
Abraham.
The first Jew.
Abraham is the embodiment of cheese of kindness. Remember, Sodom banned kindness. Abraham built his entire life on it. He famously ran a tent that was open on all 4 sides just to feed wayfarers. He proclaimed the name of God to a world that had forgotten. And his sheer force of benevolence pulled the Shekinah from the 7th heaven back down to the 6th.
He reversed the trend. The elevator started moving.
Then came his son, Isaac. And Isaac was different. He wasn't the open, flowing tent. He was the disciplined digger of wells. He represents Gevurah, severity, discipline, awe. He showed that serving God isn't just about love, it's also about boundaries and self-sacrifice. And that discipline brought the presence from the 6th heaven down to the 5th.
Love and discipline. Then Jacob.
Jacob represents Tiferet, which means beauty or truth. He synthesized Abraham's love and Isaac's discipline into a balanced whole. He was the one who wrestled with the angel. He brought that integrated truth down from the 5th to the 4th.
And then we have a bit of a gap in popular knowledge, right? We usually skip from the patriarchs straight to Moses. But there are 3 generations in between that are crucial here.
The intermediary generation. You have Levi, Jacob's son, then Kehas, Levi's son, and Amram, who was Moses' father. These men were the spiritual bedrock of the Jewish people in Egypt. While the rest of the nation was, sinking into the slavery and the culture of Egypt, these three maintained the lineage of holiness. Levi brought it to the third heaven, Kehos to the second. And Amram, who was the head of the Sanhedrin of his time, brought the Shekinah from the second heaven down to the first.
So Amram gets it to the threshold. The divine presence is hovering just overhead.
And then comes the seventh, Moses.
And the source text quotes a really beautiful principle here. All sevenths are beloved.
Kol Hashvin Havivin, the recurring pattern in Jewish thought. The seventh day is Shabbat, the seventh year is the sabbatical year, Shemitah, and the seventh generation, Moses, was the one who had the power to complete the circuit. He didn't just bring it close, he brought it down, all the way to the ground floor. This happens specifically at Mount Sinai and then more permanently with the construction of the Mishkan, the tabernacle, and the desert. When that physical structure was built with gold, silver, wood, and wool and dedicated, the verse says, "And the glory of God filled the tabernacle."
The tenant returned.
The tenant returned. The 26 generations of exile were over. The Shekinah was back in a physical home.
So, looking at this whole timeline, it feels like a classic Return to Eden story. We had it, we lost it, we got it back. But the Rebbe, the expert voice in these discourses, he stops us right there and says, not so fast.
Right. If you think the goal was just to get back to where Adam started, you're missing the entire point.
Because you can't step in the same river twice. Is that the idea?
It's more than that.
Yeah.
Because the quality of the light that returned is different. Think about it in terms of a relationship. Imagine a couple that falls in love effortlessly. It's sweet, it's innocent, it's pure. That's Adam in the garden.
The honeymoon phase.
Exactly. Now imagine a massive betrayal, a breakup, years of distance, anger, hurt, real pain. But then, slowly, they start to work on it. They go to therapy. They rebuild trust, brick by painful brick. They face the darkness of their separation and they choose each other anyway. When they finally reunite, is their love the same as it was during the honeymoon?
No, not at all. It's heavier, it's grittier, but it's infinitely stronger. It's earned love versus gifted love.
Exactly. The revelation of godliness that Moses brought down into the tabernacle was of a much, much higher voltage than the light that was present in the Garden of Eden. The descent, the entire tragedy of history, actually facilitated a revelation that wouldn't have been possible otherwise.
So the breakdown was a feature, not a bug.
That is the dangerous, but I think profound insight here. But to really understand why that is, we have to talk about the why of creation itself, because we still haven't answered my opening question.
Yeah.
Why does God want this dirty, broken, rehabbed house in the first place?
Yeah, we know that he wants it. We've established that, but we don't know why.
And this is where we have to, for a moment, abandon logic.
Abandon logic. We're an intellectual deep dive. That's a pretty big ask.
Logic works when you're discussing utility. If I ask you, why did you buy a hammer? You can give me a logical answer, to drive nails. There's a clear cause and an effect. The hammer serves a purpose.
Right.
But if I ask you, why do you love your child? Or why do you have a deep desire to paint?
I can try to give reasons, but ultimately they all fall short. The real answer is just, I just do.
I just do. That is a language of desire. And in Hebrew, the word is ta'ava, the Midrash states. The Holy One, blessed be He, had a ta'ava, a craving, a deep desire to have a dwelling place in the lower worlds.
Ta'ava, that's a very visceral word. It's usually used for things like a craving for food or physical intimacy.
It implies something irrational. Something comes from the core of the being, not the mind. You don't reason your way into a desire. You discover that the desire is part of who you are. The text explains that this desire arises from God's Awtsmoos' very essence.
Okay, let's pause and distinguish essence from light, because Hasidic thought makes a huge deal about this distinction.
It's a critical distinction. Imagine a brilliant genius, an Einstein-level intellect. When he goes to the university, he is revered. He gives lectures. His light, his wisdom fills the room. The students are there specifically to receive that light.
Okay, so the university is the higher worlds, the spiritual realms.
Exactly. The spiritual realms at Caesalis, the heavens, are built to receive God's light. They are sophisticated, transparent, spiritual structures that can handle the lecture. God is present there, but he is present as the creator, the source of wisdom. He is defined by his output.
He's wearing his professor coat.
Perfect. But where is the professor truly at home?
In his living room, in his bathrobe, probably watching TV or playing with his dog.
Is he giving a lecture?
No, of course not.
Is he trying to impress anyone with his genius?
No, the dog certainly doesn't care about E equals MC squared.
What is he there?
Yes. More than anywhere else. He's just himself.
That is the essence. That is Awtsmoos. The essence isn't defined by what it does or what it knows. It just is. Now here's the kicker. The spiritual worlds are too loud for the essence. They're full of light, revelation, angels singing, souls understanding. They are the lecture hall.
They are too impressed with the professor to accommodate the person.
Brilliant. Yes, that's exactly it. But the physical world, this dark, dense, low place, it has no light of its own. It doesn't understand God. It blocks the light. It is, in a sense, dumb like the floorboards of a house.
It's the mute button on the universe.
And precisely because it has no definition or light of its own, it is the only container that can match the undefined absolute nature of the essence. The absolute lowest point corresponds to the absolute highest essence.
So because this world is nothing spiritually, it can hold the everything of the essence.
Nidava. He desired a home here, not to be known, but to just be.
That is actually incredibly validating. It means my mundane existence isn't a distraction from God. It's the actual location of the main event. The traffic jam is the living room.
If, and this is a very big if, you build the furniture.
Right, because right now, the living room is a mess. It's full of dirty laundry and active construction zones. God might want to live here, but we haven't given him a place to sit yet.
We are the contractors. That is the mandate of the human being, to take this raw, hiding physical world and craft it into a sanctuary.
So let's talk construction. We're obviously not using bricks and mortar. What are the tools?
The tools are two distinct spiritual movements, or maybe actions. The sources call them iskafia and ishapsha.
Sounds like a wrestling move and a dance step.
They are both wrestling moves, in a way. Let's start with iskafia. It translates to subjugation or bending.
Bending my own nature.
Yes. It is the act of suppressing a negative impulse. It's playing defense.
Okay, give me a real-world scenario. Let's go deeper than just not eating a donut.
Okay, let's talk about professional integrity. You're in a meeting. You have the opportunity to throw a colleague under the bus to save your own reputation. It would be easy, a little lie, a subtle shift of blame. Your animal soul, your survival instinct is screaming at you, do it, protect yourself.
That's a powerful instinct. It feels like survival.
Iskafia is the moment you feel that urge. You see the off-ramp and you consciously say no. You close your mouth, you take the heat, you subjugate the ego's desire for safety to the higher value of truth.
You bend the ego until it snaps, basically.
And here is the metaphysical mechanic behind it. When you do that, when you stop the other side from expressing itself, the Zohar says something amazing happens. The glory of God is raised in all worlds.
Why? All I did was stay quiet. It's a moment of inaction.
Because you have broken the hegemony of the physical. You've proved that the material world and your material brain isn't the boss. That act of resistance cracks the shell of the universe. And through that crack, a specific type of light shines through. It's called Sovev Kol Alman.
The surrounding light, or encompassing light.
Right. Most of the light we experience is Mimel Kol Alman, the filling light. It fits into things, like water in a glass. It's tailored to your capacity to understand. But Sozev is the light that is too big to fit. It encompasses everything. It's infinite. When you do iskafia, you tap into that infinite light. You bring down a light that doesn't care about the rules of nature.
So by saying no to my small nature, I invite the infinite nature.
Exactly. That is step one. Clearing the space, bending the resistance. But you can't live a whole life just saying no all the time.
Right. That's just asceticism. That's living in a cave.
And Judaism is not about the caves. It's about building a home. So you need the second tool. Ishapsha, transformation, flipping it.
This is the offense.
This is taking the energy of the animal soul, that raw, selfish drive, and not just stopping it, but redirecting it.
Hijacking the enemy's tank.
That's a perfect analogy. The tank was built by the enemy to destroy your city. But if you capture the tank, you turn the turret around and you use it to defend the city, you now have more firepower than you started with.
Okay, so back to our examples. How would that work?
Take a person who has a nature that is, let's say, extremely arrogant. They love being the center of attention. They need to be the boss.
That's usually seen as a negative trait.
In its raw form, yes, absolutely. But Ishapsha says, don't kill the arrogance. Use it. Take that need to be a leader and use it to spearhead a massive charitable project that no one else has the guts to lead. Use that stiff neck to stand up for someone who is being bullied when everyone else is too afraid.
So you take the fire of the ego and you burn it in the engine of holiness.
Yes. You transform the darkness into light. And the source says this is actually the superior service. Iskafia holds the line. Ishapja expands the territory of the king.
It reminds me of some recovering addicts I know, the ones who really make it.
Ugh.
They don't just stop using, they become the most ferocious, dedicated counselors for other people. They take that obsessive, intense energy that destroyed them and they flip it to save others.
That is classic Ishapja. And the text argues that the light that's generated from Ishapja is sweeter and more intense than the light of the innocent.
Which brings us back to the broken rope. We touched on this earlier, the idea that the repair is stronger than the original. But I want to dig into the Baal Teshuvah concept.
The master of return.
Right. The Talmud makes a claim that always sounded, well, a little unfair to me. It says, in the place where a Baal Teshuvah stands, even the completely righteous, the tzaddikim, cannot stand.
It sounds unfair because we think in terms of a record. The tzaddik has a perfect, clean record. The Baal Teshuvah has a record full of felonies. Why should the felon be ranked higher?
Exactly. I pay my taxes on time my whole life. Why does the tax evader get the front row seat?
Because of the thirst. Imagine two people. One has lived by a fresh water spring their entire life. They drink whenever they want. They were hydrated, healthy, calm.
That's the tzaddik, the righteous person.
The other person has been lost in the Sahara Desert for 3 days. No water, sun beating down. They are literally dying of thirst.
That's the Baal Teshuvah, the one who strayed.
Yeah, bring them both to a single glass of water. Who loves the water more?
Oh, the guy from the desert, he's going to attack that water. It's life itself to him.
Exactly. The tzaddik loves God, but it's a calm, cool love. It's water, the Baal Teshuvah. He has been in the other side. He knows the emptiness of sin. He has felt the excruciating distance. So when he returns, his soul is on fire. He yearns for God with a passion that the tzaddik literally cannot manufacture.
So the descent into sin created the capacity for that thirst.
And God wants that thirst. He wants that fire. That's why he allows the elevator to go down in the first place, to create the tension that launches the soul even higher than before.
There's a wordplay in the source regarding Adam, the word for man, that really illuminates this tension.
Yes. The breakdown of the name Adam, it's spelled Aleph, Dalet, Mem.
Aleph and Dam.
Right. Dam is the Hebrew word for blood. It represents the biological, the warm, the animal vitality, the passions, the instincts, the raw life force.
And the Aleph.
Aleph is the first letter of the alphabet. It's silent. It represents Alufo Shelo Olam, the master of the world, the divine intellect, God.
So a human being is a hybrid, God plus blood.
Ideally, yes. The Aleph guides the Dam. The divine intellect directs the passion. That combination is Adam. But the letters can separate.
If the Aleph leaves.
You are left with just Dam, just blood, just an impulsive, violent, selfish animal.
But the goal of the dwelling place isn't to get rid of the blood.
No, that's the key. We aren't angels. Angels are all Aleph, pure spirit. Animals are all Dam, pure physicality. We are the synthesis. The entire work of our lives is to constantly reinsert the Aleph into the Dam, to take our blood, our money, our time, our energy, and stamp it with a divine purpose.
And that requires a lot of friction.
Infinite friction. And that friction, that struggle, is what makes the treasure accessible.
Okay, you set this up perfectly. The parable of the king's treasure. This, for me, was the emotional core of this whole deep dive.
It's a parable brought by the Alter Rebbe to explain why God would risk sending a pure soul into this messy blood world.
So set the scene for us.
Imagine a king, a very powerful king, who has reigned for decades. He has treasure vaults filled with gold and silver that he uses for the daily budget of the kingdom. But he also has one specific secret vault.
The heirloom vault.
The treasure of treasures. It's been sealed since the days of his ancestors. It contains gems so rare, so precious, that no one has ever seen them. Not the citizens, not the ministers, not even the princes of the court. The king treasures this collection more than his own throne.
Okay, so it's completely untouchable.
As long as the kingdom is at peace, the treasure stays sealed. Why would he touch it? The budget is balanced, but then war comes.
And not just a small border skirmish.
A siege. A full-on existential war. The enemy has broken through the borders, smashed the outer defenses, and is surrounding the capital city itself. If the capital falls, the king is dead, the kingdom is gone.
Desperate times.
The generals are panicking, the regular army is exhausted. The only thing standing between the king and total destruction are the frontline soldiers, the grunts. They are muddy, bloody, hungry, and they are losing morale.
So what does the king do?
He does the unthinkable. He goes to that secret vault. He breaks the ancient seals. He takes out the treasure of treasures, this priceless, irreplaceable family legacy.
And he puts it in a museum to inspire them.
No, He grinds it up, he takes the gems, and he pulverizes them into a fine powder. He mixes that powder into a special potion, and he sends the potion to the front lines,
To the grunts, not the generals.
to the common soldiers. He feeds them the family jewels. He wastes the glory of the treasure to give them a momentary boost of vitality.
But why? That seems so reckless.
Because if the soldiers fall, there is no king. The glory of the treasure is completely irrelevant if the essence of the kingdom is destroyed. When the essence is at stake, you squander the glory to save the essence.
Okay, that hits hard. So, in the analogy,
The king is God. The treasure is the Awtsmoos, the deepest, most intimate essence of the divine. The ministers and princes are the angels and the souls in the higher worlds.
and they are at peace.
They're sitting pretty in the palace. Everything is fine up there. They don't need the treasure, so they don't get the treasure.
And we are the grunts.
We are the souls in bodies, down here in the mud, fighting the other side. We are fighting the doubts, the temptations, the raw damn. The kingdom is under attack here.
So God gives us the treasure.
He gives us the Awtsmoos. He gives us the power of self-sacrifice, the connection to the essence that defies all logic. He wastes it on us. Why? Because we are the ones holding the line.
This completely reframes the entire experience of struggle. I usually think, if God loved me, he'd make this easier. He'd let me be an angel.
And the parable says, no, it is because it's hard, because you are on the front line, that you are entrusted with the greatest treasure in existence. The angels are jealous of the grunts.
Because the grunts have the king's life in their hands.
Precisely. The dwelling place is built by the soldiers, not the diplomats.
So let's get practical. I'm a soldier, I've got the potion, but I'm still standing in the mud. And frankly, sometimes I get distracted. I'm trying to pray, or I'm trying to be present with my kids, or I'm trying to do that charitable work, and my brain just goes, ewa.
The counterattack.
Yeah, but I lock the car, I'm still angry at my boss, look at that notification on my phone. It's constant, and I feel like I'm failing the mission when that happens.
The source addresses this specific problem. And the first thing it says is, don't panic. The very fact that you are being distracted is proof that you are doing something valuable.
How so?
The animal soul is smart. If you were just sitting on the couch spacing out, it wouldn't bother you. You're already wasting time. But the moment you try to connect, the moment you try to build the dwelling, you are threatening its territory. So it throws a flashbang grenade. It tries to break your focus. The resistance confirms the value of the action.
Okay, so the distraction is a sign I'm over the target. But how do I clear it?
The discourses offer two main strategies, and they align perfectly with our earlier tools. Strategy A is the transformer approach, linked to the Baal Shem Tov. This is usually for external distraction.
Like someone walking into the room while I'm meditating.
Right. You're praying, and a guy starts hammering a nail next door, or a child runs into the room crying. The Baal Shem Tov would say, this is not an accident, this is divine providence.
So don't ignore it.
Elevate it. There is a spark of holiness in that event that needs you. Maybe the hammering is a reminder to hammer out your own heart. Maybe the crying child is the real service of God in that moment, comforting another human being. You incorporate the distraction into the mission. As Hapsha said, you flip it.
Okay, that's beautiful for the external stuff, but what about the internal garbage? The intrusive thoughts, the petty jealousies, the random urges. I don't want to elevate a thought about punching someone in traffic.
Exactly. You can't elevate trash. For that, we use strategy B, the Alter Rebbe's method, the ignorer.
Iskafia.
But a specific kind of iskafia. The advice is, do not argue with a thought.
That is so hard. My immediate instinct is to say, why am I thinking this? Stop thinking this. This is a bad thought.
And the moment you do that, you have lost the battle.
Why?
The analogy that Tanya uses is like wrestling with a dirty person. If a guy covered in sewage runs at you, and you grapple with him to push him away, what happens?
I get covered in sewage even if I win.
Exactly. You cannot win a debate with your own neuroses in the moment. The more you engage, the stickier it gets.
So what do I do?
You ghost your own brain. You treat the thought like a stranger mumbling on the subway. You hear it, but you don't turn your head. You don't make eye contact. You just pivot your attention.
Oh, there's a thought. Anyway, back to my prayer.
It requires a soul power, an attribute called netzach.
Explain netzach.
Netzach means victory, but it also means eternity and persistence.
Yeah.
It is the power of stubbornness. It's not an intellectual move. It's not saying I will logically deconstruct this thought. It's saying, with sheer will, I am a soldier on a mission and I refuse to be moved.
It's grit.
It is holy grit. And the source makes a massive promise here. It says, That for every second you successfully push that thought away, every time you refuse to engage, you are subduing the Sitra Atra, the other side.
And what's the payoff for that tiny, invisible battle?
The payoff is cosmic. The text says that this quiet, invisible struggle brings more delight to God than the praises of the highest angels. The angels are singing beautifully, but they aren't fighting sewage. You are. And when you win, even for a second, the glory of God is raised.
I think that's the key takeaway for the daily grind. We measure success by flow states or these big epiphanies, but the source seems to measure success by the struggle itself.
The struggle is the construction.
Yeah.
You are laying the bricks of the dwelling place with every single rejection of the negative.
So where is this all heading? We've got the history, the desire, the tools, the battle. What does the finished house look like?
The third temple.
We've had two, and they were destroyed.
And they were destroyed. Why? Because the work wasn't finished. The dwelling wasn't stable yet. But the promise is that our cumulative work, all the Iskafia and Ishapcha of the last 2,000 years, is building the third temple. And this one will be permanent.
Because it's built on the descent. It's built from the ground up, not top down.
Because it's built on the transformation of the lowest realms. And this leads us to the final, really mind-bending concept in the notes. The relationship between the body and the soul in the future.
This part really threw me for a loop, because the standard model is soul equals battery, body equals flashlight. The soul keeps the body alive. If the soul leaves, the body is just meat.
That is the current reality. Soul feeds the body. The spiritual sustains the physical.
Right.
But remember what we said at the very beginning.
Yeah.
Where is the Awtsmoos, the essence, truly rooted?
In the lowest point, in the physical.
Right. The body is the lowest point. The soul is light. Currently, the body is asleep. It doesn't know what it holds. But in the future, when the work is done and the essence is revealed, the body will wake up.
And what happens when it wakes up?
It will be revealed that the body is actually rooted higher in God than the soul is. The soul is a ray of God's light. The body is a vessel for God's essence.
So the polarity flips?
The polarity flips completely. The text says the soul will be nourished by the body. The physical vessel will become the source of energy for the spiritual light.
That sounds like nuclear fusion. The matter itself becomes the energy source.
It is spiritual fusion. It's the ultimate realization of Daira Bitactinum. The lowest becomes the highest. The stone becomes the diamond.
That completely changes how I look at my own body. It's not just a clumsy spacesuit I have to drag around. It's a dormant reactor of divine essence.
It is the treasure chest. You just haven't found the key yet.
And the key is the work, the Iskafia, the Ishapcha.
The struggle.
So, to the listener, if you are feeling like a grunt in the trenches today, if you are fighting a battle that nobody sees, if you are wrestling with a dirty thought,
know that you're the king's favorite soldier. You're holding the line, and you are building the only home God actually wants.
keep digging. Thanks for diving deep with us.
A pleasure.